On the day the country was destroyed, my husband asked me to bear the charge of being a demon concubine for her in order to save my sister. I suffered too much in the palace tomorrow night, and I can't bear to let her end up like that. If you can come to see me alive, I will allow you to enter the Gu ancestral hall. In the firelight, I saw Gu Hungyu's back protecting her sister and leaving without hesitation. I wasted my life for him, and in the end, even this life was just a letter of surrender to please his sweetheart. Rebirth returned to the day when he promised him to come to the door with a marriage certificate to ask for marriage. My mother looked at me with embarrassment. Long, your sister is back. This is the marriage contract made with the Gu family. I chuckled and burned the marriage certificate to ashes. The one who has a marriage contract with the Gu family is a sister, and she should be allowed to marry her. Hearing my words, my mother was a little surprised. You and his childhood sweetheart, are you really angry with him? If you really let your sister marry, you won't be able to cry in the future. I nodded. It's not a gamble. After experiencing the destruction of the country and the destruction of the family, the betrayal of relatives, I have taken my personal desires very lightly. My mother sighed, raised her eyes to observe my expression, as if she was still sure of my intentions. Although Gu Hungyu's child is a little colder, he is talented and will definitely be, in the future. I threw the marriage certificate into the brazier and watched the tongue of fire spread over it. My sister is the real young lady of the Shen family. She has no Shen bloodline, but she was raised by her father and mother, and she is extremely content, let alone take revenge and rob her sister's marriage. Yes, before today, who would have thought that I, who had been a miss of the Shen family for more than 10 years, turned out to be a fake daughter who was held by mistake, and the lost and regained sister is the real daughter of the Shen mansion. Of course, I also know that Gu Hungyu will definitely be a minister in the future, and his power will be overshadowed by the government and the opposition. In my previous life, I took the place of my sister Shen Tingwen through my own selfishness and became the mistress of the Gu family. Gu Hungyu gave me the courtesy that all husband and wife should have, but she was stingy to give me a trace of the temperature that belonged to my husband, because what he has always loved is my sister Shen Tingwen, from her sister being recognized by the Hu mansion to entering the palace as a concubine. Gu Hungyu's thoughts never stopped. If she hadn't been replaced tomorrow night, the person she should have married would be me, on the day my sister entered the palace. Gu Hungyu looked at the bright red palace sedan chair in amazement. This marriage should have been hers. Do you understand? I lowered my eyes bitterly, and the eyelashes covered the unbearable under my eyes. But after all, there are still 15 years of love. I restrained my nature and tried to be a docile and virtuous mistress to keep the Gu mansion in order. Although Gu Hungyu is still taciturn, he treats me a little differently. He occasionally talks to me about court anecdotes, not much. But no longer completely isolated. If he gets the new tea tribute from Jiangnan, he will silently ask someone to send one to my room first. Gu Hungyu was still reserved and courteous in front of others, but he and I sank wantonly in the study for countless nights. It's far. He curled my hair with his fingertips and pressed his warm lips to my ear. Sometimes I think, if it was her who married me back then, it would be better for me to enjoy myself like you. The flames climbed extremely fast and quickly engulfed the two side-by-side names in the center. With my infatuation with Gu Hungyu in my previous life, it turned into dust. There were small footsteps outside the window, and I caught a glimpse of a familiar dress flashing by. It's a deep listening evening. She always appears just in time at such moments, and then her eyes are red. Sister, don't get me wrong, I'm just passing by. Sure enough, the next moment she walked in timidly. Mother, sister, have I bothered you? Mother waved for her to come closer, and said softly, it's just right, just in time. I am willing to give you the marriage contract. B1001 B1001. Shen Tingwen raised his head suddenly. The surprise in his eyes flashed, and he turned to a panicked look. How can this work? My sister and young master Gu grew up together, and their relationship is extraordinary. How can I win people's love? She said, even bursting into tears. Mother, don't wrong my sister just because you pity me. This marriage contract has been made since childhood, and it is God's will. Tomorrow night, I don't dare to have any delusions tomorrow night. The mother stretched out her hand and hugged Shen Tingwen into her arms. Okay, don't refuse anymore, this marriage is yours. And your mother will make the decision for you. Shen tomorrow raised her tearful face and the corners of her lips curled up. I pursed my lips and looked at the two hugging each other calmly. Sister hereby wishes my sister and young master Jiyu Luanfeng and Ming, and always be united. I say this blessing sincerely. In the previous life, Jiyu Hongyu loved Shen Tingwen so much that he would rather commit the great disgrace of the world. On the day the country fell, we were surrounded by rebels to a dead end. Search. We must not let go of the demon concubine of the Shen family who has harmed the country and the people. After her sister entered the palace, she was very favored by the emperor, and now that the emperor is dead, she has become the first person to be liquidated. Hongyu, I'm afraid of. Shen Tingwen's face turned pale, and he cried until the pear blossoms were raining. Jiyu Hongyu stared at my face and sighed deeply. You look like your sister, and you pretend to be her to lure the rebels away. My heart sank suddenly, and my whole body was like falling into an ice cave. He avoided my gaze. His tone sharp and cold. The rebels want the life of the late concubine. You go and lure them away. If you can come back alive. He paused and said the second half of the sentence as if giving alms. I, Jiyu Hongyu, will allow you to enter my Jiyu family ancestral hall and enjoy the incense of future generations. The door panel of the side hall where he was hiding was slammed, and the hesitation in Jiyu Hongyu's eyes was completely erased. He tore off Shen Tingwen's robe and put it on me, and pushed me out. At that moment, I finally saw clearly. My relationship with Jiyu Hongyu for nearly 20 years is not as good as Shen Tingwen's tears. Madam, Miss, all the guests have arrived, and the master's birthday banquet is about to begin. My thoughts were interrupted by the maid's announcement. In his previous life, Jiyu Hongyu came to visit his father and saw Shen Tingwen returning to the house at the birthday banquet. I was worried about Jiyu Hongyu's body, so I made sobering soup for him and sent it to his room. When he opened the door, he was leaning on the couch, his clothes slightly open, and there was a strong smell of alcohol between his eyebrows. Come a long way, he called out in a low voice, his voice different from usual. Why are you? He pushed me down on the couch with his hands, and the kisses with the smell of alcohol fell overwhelmingly. It wasn't until early the next morning that the two woke up leisurely. Jiyu Hongyu looked at me, and then at Luo Hong on the couch. His face became extremely ugly. He got up in silence, turned his back to me, and tidied up his clothes. It took a long time to speak. I'll take responsibility. 3 books and 6 ceremonies. The Duke of Zhonghua will come to visit as scheduled. But in this life, I don't want to have anything to do with Jiyu Hongyu anymore. B1001 B1001. The banquet hall of the Hu mansion was staggered, and my father's hearty laughter came from the main seat. I tidied up my dress and walked into the hustle and soul. The gaze inadvertently passed the guests, and happened to crash into a pair of deep eyes. Jiyu Hongyu, at this moment, he was talking to his father, and his figure was as tall as jade in ink-colored clothes. Shusha noticed the sight, and he looked sideways, still looking cold and alienated, the moment he saw me. His pupils flickered slightly. It's Fa, he called my name in a low voice, but I ignored it. Today's double happiness in the Hu mansion is not only his father's birthday banquet, but also an auspicious day for him to find his daughter. After 3 rounds of wine, my father raised his glass to announce to the guests, Shen Tingwen and I are twin daughters who have been separated for some reason, and now we are finally reunited. Shen Tingwen picked up the wine glass at the right time, walked to me, and held my arm affectionately. I am really happy to see my sister tomorrow night. Her eyes were filled with tears of emotion. Although we are not born to one mother, as soon as these words came out, the air around them instantly froze. Shen Tingwen seemed to realize the gaffe, and hurriedly covered his lips with an embroidered handkerchief. Look at me. I'm so happy that I said the wrong thing. I mean, even if we are not blood relatives, but since we are under the same roof, I will definitely love her as a sister of my direct relatives, and I will never let her be wronged because of her life experience. Shen Tingwen's voice fell, and there was silence at the banquet, and the guests all looked at each other. A clear and smiling voice sounded from the general's seat. Miss Shen's words reminded Pei of an old border incident. Pei Anlan was originally drinking himself at the banquet, and only raised his eyes after hearing Shen Tingwen's words. Last year in the north, a child was injured by a pack of wolves, and he was picked up and raised by an old firefighter in the army. The child is now helping to take care of the horses in the camp, and everyone regards him as their own nephew. According to Miss Shen's logic, shouldn't we remind that child is not biological every day to be treated kindly? Pei Anlan is the youngest son of General Pei, and his family has served as the important task of protecting the country for generations. And he went to the battlefield with his father to kill the enemy at the age of 14. In my last life, I saw him twice. Once when I was 10 years old, I was bored in the house and pestered my father to take me to the barracks. I happened to meet Pei Anlan in the camp tent, who was supervised by General Pei to practice calligraphy. Once at the end of my life, the palace walls collapsed, the blades of the rebels were about to fall, and I closed my eyes and waited to die. But I heard a heart-wrenching cry penetrating the fight. Xin Yuwei. Pei Anlan was dressed in a bloody military uniform and used his body to block the fatal blow for me. The blade pierced through the armor and through his body. He stumbled a little, but he still stood firmly and protected me firmly under his figure. Warm drops of blood fell on my face. He looked down at me and wanted to smile at me, but it pulled the wound and coughed up blood. I'm sorry, I'm late, I couldn't protect you. I numbly helped him down slowly. I just feel that fate has played a big joke on me. Why did I have to wait until the last moment of my life to let me see his affection clearly? If there is an afterlife, will you look at me a little longer? The beams and pillars of the palace could no longer support it, and it collapsed with sparks in the sky. Instead of dodging, I hugged him tighter, burying my face in his neck socket, where there was still a hint of warmth. Yes, my tears finally burst. Pei Anlan, listen, if there is an afterlife, I will definitely find a way to come to you. B1001 B1001. I gave Pei Anlan a grateful look back, then he raised his face and smiled at Shen Tingwen. Thank you for your love. Once upon a time, I hated my life experience. I hate why my birth mother wanted to steal my life, which put me in such an embarrassing situation. I hate fate for making people not only let me enjoy the glory of the Hu family for 15 years, but why do I cruelly take it back when I am the happiest? But now, I am relieved. The birth mother's choice is her cause and effect, and the 15 years of careful upbringing and sincere love of the adoptive father and adoptive mother are not false. They taught me to read and reason, gave me fine clothes and food, and I will always remember this nurturing grace. But, I also know very well, this is not my home after all. Jiyu Hongyu sat there, moving his lips, as if he wanted to say something. But in the end, he just lowered his eyes. I was not surprised by his silence at the moment. In my previous life, after I was pregnant, Shen tomorrow night summoned me into the palace under the pretext of boredom and made me kneel in the rain all night. In the end, I fainted from exhaustion and woke up with the child gone. Not only that, but I also left the root of the disease and could not have children for the rest of my life. I grabbed Jiyu Hongyu's sleeves and cried to him about what Shen Tingwen had done, but there was no grief on his face, but there was a hint of impatience between his eyebrows. Tomorrow night, she was simple-minded, she didn't mean to, she was just acting in accordance with the palace rules at that time. You are weak and can't stand it. Besides, she is struggling in the palace now. Why do you have to frame her and make her worse? I also feel heartbroken about losing my child, but this matter. Stop here, don't mention it again. The subtle atmosphere of the banquet was resolved by Pei Anlan's words. Shen Tingwen sat stiffly in place. The gentle smile on his face could hardly be hung up. The banquet was over, and the guests gradually dispersed. I walked out of the hall with the flow of people. The night breeze blew on my face. With a hint of coolness, his eyes swept over the drunken Jiyu Hongyu not far away. He seemed to feel something, and when he looked up, his eyes were deep and complicated, but I have turned around indifferently without stopping at all. I didn't worry that he drank too much like in my previous life. So I went to the small kitchen to make that bowl of sobering soup. Tonight, I have something more important. I bypassed the cloister and walked to the courtyard where the male guests were resting from memory. In front of a room door with a lantern with the word pay, I stopped and knocked on the door gently. The door was quickly pulled open. Payanlan stood inside the door. He had taken off his robe, and he was only wearing an ink-colored suit. Seeing that it was me, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes, and then it turned into a warm smile. Miss Shen. He turned sideways and got out of the way. It's late at night, but is there something wrong? I walked into the guest room and locked the door. I came here to ask you for something. I want to beg you to marry me and take me out of the capital to the northern frontier. His pupils dilated slightly, and his eyes were full of incredulity. Miss Shen, what does this mean? Your marriage contract with Prince Gu. The marriage contract has been withdrawn. And now the person who has a marriage contract with the Gu family is Shen Tingwen. I stared into his eyes, feeling astringent in my heart. Payanlan, I'm not joking, and I'm not acting on my own will. The capital is already a cage for me. Only by going to the frontier may there be a glimmer of life. In the previous life, Daong was destroyed because the frontier was mixed into the northern border. Payanlan's life path was cut off by that person. In this life, I don't want to watch him be killed by traitors, let alone watch the mountains and rivers shatter and the living beings suffer. Payanlan looked at me, without asking or questioning. His Adam's apple rolled gently, as if something was choking on his throat. After a long time, he slowly spoke. Okay, wait for me. Within 3 days, I will be upright and come to the door to ask for a marriage. B1001 B1001. Payanlan will do what he says. Early in the morning of the 3rd day, the betrothal gift of the Pei mansion was carried into the Hu mansion. The gift-giving procession was lined up from the street intersection to the main gate of the Hu mansion, attracting half of the people in the capital to watch the fun. The momentum was so huge that the loyal and brave Marquis and his wife, who were accustomed to seeing the big scene, smacked their tongues. My mother pulled me to the inner room and held my hand, tears flashing in her eyes. My mother knows that I have wronged you these days. She gently stroked my hair. The Pei family army is famous, and General Pei is a responsible person. You follow him, and my mother can finally be more at ease in her heart. The door creaked and was pushed open, slammed open. Shun tomorrow walked in quickly with her skirt in her hands, her eyes full of pride. Mother, younger sister, come out and take a look. Brother Hungyu also came with a bride price. It's even more magnificent than the one sent by General Pei Xiao before, she said, glancing at me meaningfully. That pomp, that demeanor, is the true style of a family. Although the Pei family is said to have a strong holy family, they are still military generals who dance with swords and guns, and their foundation is still shallow. She gently shook her mother's arm. Mother, don't you think so? However, if my sister marries into the Pei family, she will be honorable and worry-free for a lifetime. Let's go to the front hall to greet us. Don't neglect Brother Hungyu's intentions. The front hall of the loyal and brave Marquis's mansion. Jiyu Hungyu was dressed in a brocade robe, and his posture was as tall as a pine. Seeing the loyal and brave Marquis and his wife, he was very respectful and his posture was impeccable. Junior Jiyu Hungyu. I came to meet the Marquis and the lady, when his eyes swept over Shen Tingwen, who was standing aside. He nodded slightly, which was considered a greeting. Shen Tomorrow immediately smiled back with a gentle smile, with a bit of shyness and expectation in his eyes. His gaze finally fell on me, and he stayed a little longer. The Zhongyonghu mansion was worried that if the Jiyu family knew about the bride change, it would cause trouble, so they deliberately concealed the truth about the marriage change. So Jiyu Hungyu still thinks that the person who wants to marry him is me. A small gift is not respectful. I hope the lord and lady will smile and accept. Jiyu Hungyu looked away, and then raised his hand to signal his entourage to present the gift list. The Marquis of Zhongyong and his wife politely agreed, and then left the main hall one after another because they told Shun to tomorrow night. Suddenly only me and Jiyu Hungyu were left in the hall, as well as a few maids standing in the distance with their heads down. Jiyu Hungyu took 2 steps forward. His eyes lingered on my dress for a moment, and his brows furrowed slightly. Come on, he spoke. His voice was always cold. Although you are not of the Shun family's blood now, you are a girl raised by the Zhongyonghu mansion after all. and your words and deeds represent the face of the Hu mansion. In the future, when I enter the Gu family, I need to dress more modestly." His eyes turned to the conspicuous red tassel gun in the courtyard outside the window. "And those guns? It's better to touch them less in the future. The daughter's family should be chaste and virtuous after all. Dancing with knives and guns, what kind of system is it? In the future, you will always have to adapt to a new identity, and these old habits should be restrained. I have had a detached temperament since I was a child, and just because of Ji Hongyu's words, I restrained my nature and learned to look dignified. In the end, it was just a waste of his time, which was ridiculous." I raised my eyes to meet his gaze. Since the Zhongyonghu mansion allowed me to practice martial arts, I never felt that this was a disrespectful thing. What should I do? Don't bother the prince to bother. What's more, I don't enter the Gu family in this life, so what rules are there to talk about? B1001 B1001, the date of marriage is set for half a month later, and the time will come in the blink of an eye. The auspicious day has arrived, the sky is not yet bright, and there is a silver wrap everywhere. In the Zhongyonghu mansion, Shen Tingwen and I were dressing up in our boudoirs. My mother went to Shen Tingwen's room early in the morning, personally drew her eyebrows and lips, and said something close to her. My room, on the other hand, was much quieter, with only my confidant maid combing my long hair. The person in the mirror lacks the cowardice of an ordinary newlywed between his eyebrows, but he is a little more sensitive. The wedding dress was like fire. Quietly placed aside, dong dong, the door was knocked urgently. "Miss, it's not good. Night attack in the north. Border urgent report. The general is seriously injured. The major general has ordered troops, and he will set off immediately." I immediately got up and pulled up all my long hair. "Miss," the maid exclaimed. "You are." I changed into my military uniform again and grabbed the red tassel leaning against the corner. "Now, prepare the horse." When I rode to the city gate, Pei Anlan was reorganizing the army. "Come a long way." "How, you?" He looked at me in shock. When Pei Anlan saw my outfit clearly, all the words of dissuasion were choked in his throat, leaving only a pair of slightly red eyes. He rode to my side, took off the dark cloak on his shoulders and carefully tied it for me. "I'm sorry for you this time. When the border is cleared, I will definitely make up for you with a phoenix crown and a shawl." Inside the Gu residence, red candles illuminated the area, and the guests were very happy. After Gu Hongyu coped with the hustle and flow of the front yard, he stepped into the wedding room with a little drunkenness. The bride sat on the edge of the bed covered with a big red mandarin duck brocade quilt, heard the sound of footsteps, and her head hanging down slightly in the hijab. His eyes were shining. He picked up the jade ruyi and gently lifted the hijab. Under the hijab, Shen Tingwen's cheeks were crimson, and he raised his eyes to meet Gu Hongyu's gaze. "Brother Hongyu." Gu Hongyu's pupils shrank suddenly, and the fingers holding Yu Rui tightened suddenly. "Why is it you?" His voice suddenly rose, with a terrifying coldness. "Where is the long journey?" Shen tomorrow night trembled with fright from his questioning, and his eyes quickly covered with a layer of mist. "Brother Hongyu, we got married today, so naturally I am here. Sister." She chose General Pei Xiao and followed her to the north early in the morning. "Okay, what a Shen Qiao, what a loyal and brave Hu mansion." Yu Rui smashed to the ground, and the flying debris swept across Shen Tingwen's face. But Gu Hongyu didn't even look at it, turned around and kicked open the door. "Get ready." The dark wedding dress rustled in the wind, and he snatched the reins, jumped on his horse, and galloped towards the north. The carriage galloped on the official road, rolling up bursts of smoke and dust. Pei Anlan rode his horse to protect the car, and suddenly looked back, frowning slightly. Far away, someone is chasing the army behind. It is Gu Hongyu. I sat in the car and didn't even lift my eyelids when I heard the words. "Don't pay attention, speed up." A hoarse cry came from behind, the sound penetrating the rolling wheels and the wind, with incredible anger. "Shen Yuwei, how dare you?" Pei Anlan glanced at the crazy dark figure behind him, and then looked at the closed curtain, waiting for my instructions. "Come back. The frontier is not child's play." Gu Hongyu's voice came again. Even with a hint of pleading, I was still expressionless, just repeating lightly, "Speed up." Payanlan no longer hesitated, and raised his hand neatly. The whole army obeys orders and advances at full speed. The speed of the convoy suddenly increased, quickly widening the distance. Jiyu Hungyu whipped his mount frantically. And the dark wedding dress was torn and rolled in the wind and snow, but I could only watch the carriage get farther and farther away, and finally turned into a blurry black spot. He stood stiffly in the wind and snow, looking at the end of the empty official road, and let the snow particles hit his face. Shen Qiao. These 3 words seemed to be crushed out from between the teeth. In the end, all the surging emotions turned into a cold and self-deprecating arc on his lips. Jiyu Hungyu slowly turned his horse's head, and his figure looked particularly lonely in the wind and snow. The snow fell heavier and heavier, and soon covered the traces on the official road. It was as if nothing had happened. B1001 B1001. When the convoy arrived at the northern border, it was already twilight. The cold wind swept the yellow sand and remnants of snow, with a coarseness and slaughter that was completely different from that of the capital. We didn't stop and went straight into the coach's camp. The charcoal fire in the tent crackled, and the smell of medicine was strong. A pale old general was half leaning on the couch, his left shoulder wrapped in a bandage, faintly oozing blood. "Father." Payanlan stepped forward quickly and knelt on one knee. "The child is late." Pei Qing's eyes passed over his son, and when he landed on me, he first looked at me with his usual scrutiny, and then he was slightly startled. "Are you that little girl from the Zhongyonghu family?" I took a step forward and saluted with my fists according to the rules in my memory. "Shen Yuan, I have seen Uncle Pei." This Uncle Pei completely dissolved the last bit of alienation in the old general's eyes. He looked at Payanlan and I standing side by side, and a relieved smile appeared on his face. "It's good to come." He patted Payanlan on the shoulder heavily, his words with some doubts. "The people of the north came strangely this time. They just robbed grain and grass last night, and they have a new move. Grain and grass were robbed." There seemed to be a flash in my memory. The destruction of the Daong kingdom in the previous life began with the robbery of grain and grass. First, the morale of the army was fluctuating, and military orders were looked down upon. Then the generals and the fine work should be combined inside and outside. The city gate was broken, and the iron hooves of the northern border drove straight in. The war burned all over the mountains and rivers of Daong, and corpses were everywhere they went. Payanlan was also plotted by spies in that war and died with me. I subconsciously clenched my fists, my fingernails digging deep into my palms. Fortunately, I still remember the appearance of the detailed work. And everything has a chance to be rewritten. In this life, I must not let history repeat itself. After the military doctor came in to check Pei Qing's injuries, he shook his head solemnly. "The old general has lost too much blood, and he is old and has repeated injuries, so it is no longer suitable to stay on the front line." Although Pei Qing was unwilling, under the persuasion of everyone, he finally sighed and agreed to leave for the rear town to rest on the same day. Before leaving, he held Payanlan's hand tightly and looked at me deeply. His eyes were full of trust. "Lana, be careful. Here, I will leave it to you." Payanlan and I stood side by side and watched the carriage carrying the old general disappear on the ancient border road. The wind and snow seemed to be more urgent. After General Pei left, Payanlan took over the important task in the army: training, accounting, and formation. Everything is done by himself, and he never borrows from others. That day, when I was sorting out the border map in the camp, I suddenly saw Payanlan's annotations written aside. The iron painting silver hook penetrates the back of the paper, with the unique sharp edge of the battlefield. My fingertips paused on the line, and I couldn't help but chuckle. "Long, what are you laughing at?" Payanlan put down the ledger and looked at my eyes with a little more curiosity. I pointed to the line and looked at him. "I thought of my father bringing me to the barracks when I was a child, and I saw General Pei pressing you to let you learn to write dash. I said that Brother Pei's handwriting is like a chicken crawling. My father scolded me for being rude, and you blushed and said, 'It's not like this if I write seriously.'" The roots of his ears were slightly red. "What do you want to do with old things?" I smiled and bent my eyes. "So you wrote 3 pages seriously. Words are like chickens climbing." "Seriously, The generals in the tent held back their laughter and their shoulders trembled. Payanlan looked at me helplessly, but his eyes were gentle. He picked up a pen and added another line of words to the blank space of the map, which is the good word that is now fully revealed, after 10 years of training in the barracks. Has there been any change? I held his calloused hand and nodded at him with a smile. Well, like a goshawk skimming snow, B1001 B1001, within 7 days. Several raids were launched in the north. Payanlan often had just left the battlefield, and he was called to deal with military affairs before he could even treat his wounds. It was rare to quell a war on this day and win half a day of respite. I sat on the edge of the couch and carefully bandaged the knife wound on Payanlan's arm. The Imperial Court's reinforcements have arrived, and 30,000 horses have arrived 100 miles away, and the leader of the team is Jiyu Hungyu. The muscles under the gauze instantly tightened, and he raised his eyes slightly. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Jiyu Hungyu, he would actually invite himself to the frontier. I also felt a little strange about it. In his previous life, Jiyu Hungyu was the most disgusted with military affairs, and he always felt that the military generals were vulgar and arrogant, and they were not as noble as the civil officials. Now this person who even thinks the polo club is dusty and dirty, actually escorting grain and grass in person against the wind and snow at the border. Payanlan had restrained his expression and stood up. No matter who comes, it is a comrade who can hold the country. The giant sun sank to the west, and the reinforcements finally arrived at the pass. Jiyu Hungyu reined in his horse and stopped outside the yoke gate, his black cloak covered with frost and snow. The battle flag rustled in the wind, and the air smelled of blood mixed with herbs. The military doctor was very busy. I was bandaging the soldier's broken leg, and Payanlan naturally squatted aside to help me hand the scissors. Seeing Jiyu Hungyu, Payanlan got up and nodded at him. Jiyu Shilang, General Pei. He dismounted and saluted, his eyes swept over my face. Cold and jerky, Payanlan took half a step sideways calmly, just cutting off his line of sight. That night, the commander's tent was brightly lit. Jiyu Hungyu and Payanlan stood opposite each other on both sides of the sand table, discussing the deployment of reinforcements and the allocation of grain and grass until late at night. I sat aside, sorting out the casualty list during the day, and only the sound of the two of them deploying and the soft sound of the pages turning over in the tent. General Pei, the old general has sent an urgent letter. Soldiers suddenly broke in to report. Payanlan's knuckles paused. I know, suddenly. Only Jiyu Hungyu and I were left in the tent, and the candlelight crackled. He didn't speak, just walked to the charcoal basin, picked up the tongs and fiddled with the silver charcoal in the basin. The jumping fire reflected his thin profile. I remember, Jiyu Hungyu suddenly spoke, his voice with a hint of imperceptible astringency. You used to be most afraid of the dark and cold. I raised my eyes and looked at him calmly. Jiyu Shilang came to the frontier thousands of miles away. Is it just to say this? He put down the tongs, turned to face me, and his eyes surged. Long, he took a step forward, his voice lowering even more. I have something to say to you, but I really don't know where to start. I want to tell you, it is a person who has experienced life and death. Jiyu Hungyu's pupils contracted sharply. The most terrible sight I have ever seen. The mountains and rivers are broken, the old people are scattered, and the way you look at me covered in blood. He held my hand with some anxiety. I want you to believe that I am standing here in this life, not for Qingyun Road, but in order not to repeat the same mistakes. B1001 B1001. Breathing seemed to pause for a moment. Jiyu Hungyu. He was actually reborn. I pulled my hand back suddenly, my fingertips cold. What is Jiyu Shilang talking about? The border is bitter and cold, isn't it? Frozen and confused. What if he is also reborn? I will never choose to forgive those hurts and betrayals. Jiyu Hungyu's shoulders trembled, and his eyes were red. I'm not lying, it all really happened. It's too late to come with me now. The wind and snow swept in with the sound of war drums, and I snatched the red tassel gun that was set aside, and the tip of the cold iron spear suddenly pressed against his throat. Run, where can you take me to escape? If you abandon the city and flee today, when the country is broken in the future, What place can be called home? What's more, if you leave the military and civilians to escape alone, what is the difference between opening the door and bowing to the thieves? Ji Hungyu's blood droplets rolled down from his throat, but he approached the blade of the gun and approached half a step. Okay, good. He held the red tassel gun and laughed lowly. Then I will, with you, defend this city together. When I raised my eyes again, those madness and pain turned into a desperate Qingming. The city is in the people, but the city is gone, and the people are gone. The old general wrote a letter saying that he had intercepted the latest secret report from the northern border that the northern border army was about to raid Heishuya. Ji Hungyu took the initiative to ask for help at the military conference and asked to garrison the forward position of Heishuya, on the stage. The cold wind swept the snow particles and hit everyone's armor. Peianlan pondered for a moment, and finally handed out the Black Iron Order arrow representing the defense of the Black Water Cliff. Deputy Minister Ji Yu, the Black Water Cliff is the throat of our army, and it must not be missed. Ji Hungyu took the arrow solemnly. His eyes were extremely firm. General Pei, don't worry, since Ji Yu came to the north, he has already put this body aside. He turned to leave, but his steps slowed down as he passed me. It's a long way. Life and death are unpredictable when you go to Heishure Cliff. If wolf smoke rises in the east of the city after 3 days, it is a sign of the city being breached. He pulled out a short knife and stuffed it into my palm. This knife is for you. When I am not here, be careful with everything. Goose feather-like snowflakes fell on his black iron shoulder armor, quickly accumulating a layer. Ji Hungyu resolutely turned around, took the reorganized troops, and rushed to the direction of Heishure Cliff without looking back. I clenched my short knife tightly, my eyes swept over the distant reinforcements, and finally landed on Deputy General Wang beside Ji Hungyu. Just now, he asked for orders to go to Heishure Cliff with Ji Hungyu. I leaned close to Peianlan's ear. Keep an eye on the Deputy General next to Ji Hungyu. He is a master of the northern border. I remember this scarred face clearly. In the previous life, Deputy General Wang took advantage of the night to open the city gate and put the Northern Iron Cavalry into the pass. It was he who carried the knife to the wounded barracks and mended the knives one by one at the wounded who could not move. The crimes he committed are not excessive. Peianlan's eyes locked on the backs of the two. He put his arm around my shoulder, his voice gentle and firm. I saw it. I have already arranged for someone to keep an eye on him. Don't worry, not only General Wang, but also Ji Hungyu. I also made the arrangements. In the past 3 days, every news from the front line has touched our hearts. In order to deal with the war in advance, we instructed the people to move to shelters in the mountains. The woman held the child's hand tightly, and the old man helped each other walk across the road. Everyone followed the arrangements of the army and was in good order. A little girl with a horn braid suddenly stopped and looked up at me. Sister, the cave we fled to, can you really live to the new year? She asked in a low voice, her black grape-like eyes shining. My mother said she would make me a candy melon this year. I knelt down on one knee and looked at her at eye level, and gathered the ends of her hair for her. Yes, not only this year, but every year in the future, we will be fine. Peianlan has come behind us at some point. He handed the girl a carved wooden pony, with curved eyebrows and eyes. Xiaoman, do you remember how I taught you how to run a horse? The girl nodded obediently. Remember, when this time passes, I will take you to the horse farm and pick a little white horse you like. B1001 B1001. In the past few days, Peianlan and I have never disarmed. When you are tired, you only take a short nap, and then wash your face with snow water to refresh yourself. And always pay attention to the situation in the city. Before dawn on the 3rd day, a dazzling fire suddenly exploded in the east of the city. Immediately, 3 red and black wolf smoke rose up, tearing apart the grey and white sky. Finally here, Peianlan stared into the distance, his voice unusually calm. He turned to look at me, his eyes shining with a gradually brightening beacon fire. I owe you a wedding. When this battle is over, I will supply you. Peianlan looked away slightly. If the plan goes wrong, you take the military talisman and lead the people to withdraw first, and then, go as far as you can. I took his hand and shook my head slightly. I have made arrangements for the people. If something happens to Pei Anlan, I will never live alone. Cheng, the 100,000 troops from the north have already approached the city, and their momentum is like a dark cloud. The air was filled with smoke and blood. Wang Yi stood at the front of the army, slowly wiping the blood stains on the tip of the knife with a silk handkerchief. Jiyu Hongyu stood behind him and stood with his head down. I seem to understand all this, General Pei. Now that Daong has fallen, it is an unclear move to resist stubbornly, so why not get to know each other and surrender early? He looked at Jiyu Hongyu with interest. Jiyu Hongyu trembled as he stared at him, and when he spoke again, the original breeze and clear moon had already been replaced by fear. Surrendered Minister Jiyu Hongyu, willing to serve the Northern Territory. Did you hear that? Even your most noble Jiyu Shilang in Daong knows current affairs. Wang Yi smiled and picked up the fish talisman on his waist with the tip of the knife, deliberately shaking it in front of the formation. General Pei, kneel down now, and you can still get a third-rank counselor. If I step on this city, it's not going to be good. I took a step forward and looked down at Jiyu Hongyu, who was like a bereaved dog, and I only felt ridiculous in my heart. Jiyu Hongyu, you once said when dies admonition, martial arts dies, but now you don't admit it. The man looked at me, his peach blossom eyes dim and sad. Come on, let's go down. I have interceded with Deputy General Wang. If Pei Anlan surrenders, you will be able to survive safely. It's all this time. What kind of reputation do you care? It is impossible to change the broken country of Daong in this life. I just want to live an ordinary life with you. Wang Yi raised his chin. General Pei, have you figured it out now, whether to fight or not? Whether the people in the city are alive or dead, it is all in your thoughts. Pei Anlan silently pulled out the sword from his waist, and the sword light broke through the air. Fight, then fight. The smoke of the beacon towers obscures the sun, and the rain of arrows is cruel. All people are fighting for this line of vitality. The defenders of the city were getting tired, and our physical strength was close to the limit. Just as the northern border was launching another onslaught, war drums suddenly sounded in the distance. A broken but still majestic Pei banner came towards us from afar. General Pei's silver hair was stained with blood, and he rushed to the front of the reinforcements. Lana, long dash. The roar of the old general pierced the battlefield. The old man is here with reinforcements. B-1001 B-1001. The setting sun was like blood, and the golden light shone on the battlefield. The surviving soldiers helped each other to stand up, and the military doctors looked for the wounded who were still alive on the battlefield. The cheers of the people came from afar, and men, women, old and young were running to tell each other that the war had been won. Pei Anlan limped towards me with a long sword, his eyes flashing like a galaxy. He pursed his lips slightly and stretched out his hand towards me. Shun Weiwei, we survived. I held his hand back. In this life, Dayong's country did not overturn after all. Half a month later, we were ordered to return to Beijing. The carriage drove past the rebuilt border city, and the people saw each other off. Xiaoman was held in her mother's arms, her face was red from the wind, and she waved her hand vigorously at us. Brother and sister, when you come back, I will ask my mother to make you candy melons to eat. I responded with a smile. Passing through the black water cliff, Pei Anlan and I personally scattered the ashes of the fallen soldiers on the top of the mountain and planted new branch buds nearby. In the coming year, they will also be able to see their hometown that is slowly getting better on the top of the mountain. In the Golden Luan Hall, after hearing about the frontier war, the emperor personally went down the steps to greet him. Pei Anlan, the Marquis of Zhunbei, was ordered in danger, turned the tide of the tide, and was promoted to the first-class general of the country, and was given the iron certificate of the Danshu. Pei Anlan bowed heavily. Minister, thank your majesty for your kindness. The Shun family is loyal and brave, and he is the wife of Zhenghua and enjoys a double salary, specially granted a phoenix feather sword, which can be directly reported to the heavens. I took the phoenix feather sword with both hands, which symbolized supreme glory. My wife will use this sword to guard the mountains and rivers forever. While discussing merit and rewards, the imperial court is also purging traitors. Wang Yi's head hung high at the city gate to set an example. Ji Hungyu was prepared to be executed in a month for treason, and Shun tomorrow was executed together, in the depths of the heavenly prison. Ji Hungyu curled up on the grass. The sons of the noble families of the past are now unkempt, and their official robes have long been torn into rags, revealing deep and shallow whip marks underneath. Shun tomorrow night slapped the iron fence frantically, his palms blurred with blood and flesh. Let me out. The person who should have married Ji Hungyu was Shun Xiaoyu, and it has nothing to do with me. The marriage certificate is written with Shun Yang's name. The person who should be beheaded is Shun Weiyu. The old jailer opened the prison door with a sneer on the corner of his mouth. Are you two still dreaming about spring and autumn? General Pei has just been named the first-class general of the protectorate of the country, and Mrs. Shun received the phoenix feather sword in front of the emperor, and she is wearing red hanging colors on the streets at this moment. And you, he glanced at the two of them. And the disgust in his eyes was unconcealed. It's just two traitors. Now that the time has come, it's time to hit the road. The prison car ran over Suzaku Street, and the people on the side of the road spat at the two people in the car. Shun tomorrow looked helplessly at the crowd, trying to find the figure of the loyal and brave Marquis and his wife. Father, mother, tomorrow night is innocent. Please save me. But she didn't know that Shun had been dismissed by her. And although she saved her life, she could not enter Beijing for the rest of her life. Ji Hungyu was still silent. It wasn't until he was taken to the execution ground that he looked at the moment when the executioner raised his head knife and remembered many years ago. At that time, he was still a teenager and was studying at the academy, and Shun Weiwei was tiptoeing into his pen holder with newly opened plum blossoms. Brother Hungyu, look at the plum blossoms I picked for you. Do you like it? The scene in front of me gradually blurred. The bloody light rose into the sky, intertwining with the sound of cannons coming from the direction of Pei Mansion. The two bodies were rolled up on straw mats and thrown into mass graves. Only the occasional barking of wild dogs seemed to be sending off the two of them. Pei Mansion on the other side. The rising sun is rising. The spring is as deep as the sea, and even the copper bells on the eaves are tied with brand new red silk. Pei Anlan was dressed in a bright red robe, and his ink hair was hunting in the middle, and the trees were full of apricot blossoms wherever he passed. He reined in his horse and raised his head, and his eyebrows were bright and fiery like never before, shouted towards the loyal and brave Marquis's mansion, Shun Qiao. This sound startled the sparrows all over the tree and attracted countless people's sidelong eyes. In the eyes of thousands of people, he smiled and raised the red silk in his hand. I'm here to marry you. I put on my embroidered gold wedding dress and walked to the door of the house, smiling and taking the other end of the red silk. The spring rolled up the courtyard. Pei Anlan twisted an apricot blossom and pinned it to my temples, reflecting my face in her eyes. Madam, let's go home.